singing and sequins. It's like a cabaret. It's amazing. I'm Emma. I'm a creative director. And 3 years ago, at the age of 29, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I'd had kind of a strange feeling in my right arm for a long time. No tremor at this point, just a kind of an odd feeling I couldn't really put my fingers on, so to speak. I ignored it, because as a family, that's what we do. My dad's had kind of eye problems for years, and he definitely ignored them for years and years and years. And I was a busy young professional, whatever that title is. I had lots I wanted to do, friends I wanted to see. I didn't want to be hauling my ass down to the doctors on the bus all the time. My parents, on the other hand, were extraordinarily concerned about it. Every time they saw me, my dad would shake my hand and see whether the strength was still there. And I knew he was doing it, and I knew it worried him. And it was only when I was at my dad's 60th birthday party, I was wearing sequins, obviously, had a gin and tonic in hand, and I was working the room, that a friend of ours came up to me in front of my dad and said, "What's wrong with your arm?" And I thought, for God's sake, you've said it in front of my parents. That's another person that's now commented on it. She works in healthcare. I'm going to have to go to the doctors. And as the worst, weirdest birthday present ever to my dad, I went to the doctors. And at this point, I'm thinking, carpal tunnel, repetitive strain, trapped nerve, probably nothing that serious. And I went to the doctor's appointment by myself because I'm a grown-up and I can do things like that. And I got there and the doctor said to me, "You don't swing your arm when you walk." And I thought, I don't really know what that means or what that has to do with anything. And she started talking about going to the local neurology department. And again, I didn't know what that was. I had a quick Google under the table, but sponsored by Google. And I wasn't concerned still at this point. I was still very sort of casual about it all. I went to some brain scans by myself. Didn't involve my parents, just thought, it'll be okay, it's not going to be anything serious. The brain scans were strange. They plugged me into a kind of a strange device and played Adele at me down headphones. Now I hate Adele. So this was the most traumatic day of my life ever, to be kind of trapped in a cage type thing with headphones on that were just relentlessly blaring Adele at me. And I went back to work afterwards and they said, "There's a few things it could be, but don't think about them. It could be Parkinson's, it could be Wilson's disease, and it could be Huntington's disease." And I did some quick Googling again, and I was rooting for Parkinson's because I knew that I wouldn't die from it, and the other two I potentially would. And it feels strange to say that I was rooting for this kind of horrible neurological condition, but it seemed the lesser of three evils, so I was game for that one. And they told me that I had Parkinson's, and I took my parents with me to that meeting because I had a feeling by this point. I was actually working on the Parkinson's UK website at work at that point in time, which is a crazy sort of twist of fate. And they said to me, "Don't think about Parkinson's, it'll be okay." And it was on every computer screen around me. And when they told me it was Parkinson's, I was relieved because of the reasons I've already mentioned, but also because I had an answer for why I'd been feeling the way I'd been feeling. Now, I don't know how much you know about Parkinson's, but it is a pretty complex condition and it's degenerative, which means it gets worse and worse and worse over time. There's about 127,000 people in the UK that have it. 1 in 100 of those are under 45. I was under 30, so the odds of me having it were pretty slim. I'd essentially managed to get an old person's condition, which when you're 29, think you're quite cool. It's not ideal because you're essentially in an old woman's body. And I struggled with this. Within a year, it became really sort of difficult. So I was, had a tremor in my hand and stiffness and rigidity in my hand, which meant that I couldn't write. I had a tremor and stiffness in my right leg that meant I sometimes couldn't walk. I was exhausted, so I couldn't actually be bothered to try and do either of the things I've just mentioned, and I was an emotional wreck. because Parkinson's means you have a lack of dopamine, and dopamine is a chemical that helps with so many day-to-day things you just wouldn't even imagine. Temperature control, so I am sweating like you would not believe because I've got sequins on, but also because I have my own temperature issues all the time. Emotions, I'm never in the right mood, I don't think. I'm always permanently sort of either over the top happy or sort of miserable. And I really, really struggled with it for about a year and a half. I was definitely letting it win. And that's not like me. I'm a positive person, and I really struggled. And it was only when I was sitting in my parents' house and I had them with me and I had my friends with me, and I thought, what the hell am I doing? I have so many people who love me and want to kind of be there for me. My life is amazing. It's like I've got middle-class problems, you know, they're not even issues. It's Parkinson's, but the rest of my life is incredible. And if Parkinson's had been a person, would I have let it take me down so easily? Because if someone tried to bully me, I wouldn't let them. If someone tried to stop me from going out and seeing my friends, I wouldn't let them. If someone tried to come into my house and destroy everything I'd worked for, ruin my relationship, you know, break everything that I'd worked hard for, would I let them? Of course I wouldn't. But I'd let something which didn't even have a face or a body or a name properly take me down. And that was my turnaround point. I decided from then onwards that I would say yes to everything, which has meant that I've ended up doing some really bizarre things. But it kind of got me out there and spending time with people who loved me, doing things that I loved, feeling excited about stuff. And my confidence grew. And I wasn't scared anymore of doing things. I could just go and do stuff. And I've put myself in some really uncomfortable situations. I've sort of been on TV and things like that, which are just things that I never would have done previously. And I think it's because Parkinson's was trying to stop me from doing those things that I became more fighty about them. It's only when someone tries to take something away from you that you realise how much you want it. And because of that, I really worked hard to make the things happen that I wanted to happen. So I started working extra hard at work, and I put in extra hours, and I really sort of committed. And I was promoted into the job that I do now, which I love. I realised that also my job is good, but it's going to get to the point where it's too hard and it's too tiring and it's too sort of stressful. And actually, I need some sort of future that has a different plan in it. So I've basically set up my own business, which I run a couple of days a week for the future. And I feel like I'm very lucky. I've written a book to kind of help other people, to tell my story, but also to help other people. And all these incredible things have happened because of Parkinson's. If I pulled the Parkinson's thread out, the rest of the threads might fall apart, and I might not have the experiences that I've had, and I probably wouldn't be talking to you guys today. So thank you.